Greetings. Hello, Matt Nightingale. How are you?
Hello, hello. Doing pretty well.
Good to have you. We always do a chat before these things and before we record, and we're trying to figure out where we met. I think on Facebook
Sounds about right.
is we have similar stories, not identical, but similar. So tell us a little about yourself.
Well, yeah, my name's Matt. What do I do? I'm pastor of a little progressive American Baptist church called The Quest here in Novato, California. It's just about a half an hour north of San Francisco in Marin County, California. So that's part of what I do. I'm the co-pastor here. And then in the other half of my life, I run a nonprofit called Common Sanctuary. I should say I, because it's a one-man
Okay.
show. Common Sanctuary is me. I do three things with Common Sanctuary. I do contemplative spirituality for LGBTQ plus people. So I do spiritual direction. I lead contemplative spirituality groups. And then I do support for people in what we call mixed orientation marriages. You're familiar with that phenomenon. I
Oh
myself
yeah.
was married to a woman for 23 years and I have four adult children. So I do support groups. I do coaching and working with men who find themselves in that situation and want to talk or want to kind of walk with somebody through, what they might want to do, or maybe they're
Right.
just kind of coming out and need someone to talk to about that.
Right.
And then I do I say education and advocacy, kind of at that intersection of LGBT and usually working with Christian people who need to kind of figure out those identities, queer and Christian, and
Right.
want to kind of talk about that. So that's kind of what I do. But yeah,
Let's dig into your story a little bit.
sure.
So when you married your ex-wife, when did you know you were gay or you were different? When did all that kick in?
Yeah, I was little. I grew up in northern Indiana in the
Okay.
1970s and 80s. I'm 53 now, and I knew when I was 10. I mean, I knew before that even. I had even experimented with a little friend of mine down the street when I was even younger than that. But um, I remember when I was 10 years old on the playground at my little Christian school, somebody used the word homosexual, and I kind of like put that idea together with who I was, and
Oh,
that's
really?
yeah, yeah. And that word, like I labeled myself with that word at that time. And it actually like it kind of made things clear to me, like that's what I am. But then I also remember like that night in the shower, like just sobbing because I was like, oh, that's what I am. And that's a bad thing. And I can never tell
Wow.
anybody that I'm a homosexual. So yeah, I was 10.
So how old were you when you got married?
21. Yeah.
So what was your thinking process with what you
I know.
just told me? Now you're
I know. Like, wait, what? You were gay, but you got married. Well, I tell people I was raised in fundamentalist evangelical Christianity in the 1980s in northern Indiana, and there was just no. I mean, there was no gay people at all. I mean, of course there were, but not in my little bubble, and let alone any healthy examples
right.
of queer people. The only examples that I had of any like gay or queer people were like flaming sissies on TV sitcoms or
Right.
like or
Right.
like, AIDS ravaged people on the news. And in my like church community, every now and then they might make some allusions to gay people, but it was always very negative and it was always in
Right.
the context of like God's judgment. And so even though I knew that I was gay, for me it was like, "Oh, keep this a secret. Don't do any, don't ever let anyone know this." And I was a very devout little Christian kid. I was deeply devout. I was like youth group president, like church 3 times a week, like listening to Christian radio, going to Christian school. I was immersed in that world 100%. And so I just was like, all right, keep this, keep it quiet, keep it hidden, and just kind of fake it till you make it. And that's what I did. And so I went away to this Christian college in Indiana. My wife came to that college from California, and she and I were good friends. We were both in the music department. And for me, it was kind of like this thing of like, I mean, if I can make it work with anybody, maybe I can make it work with her. And we were really good friends. We both kind of had similar worldviews. And yeah, I don't know. I just thought maybe I can do this. It was not like a malicious thing. It was like,
Right.
I knew I wanted to be in ministry. I knew I wanted to have kids. I knew I wanted to be a normal Christian husband, father. And
Did
so
you think that by marrying her that those things would go away or they would change? Was that
I
not
don't,
part of the
I don't think I did. It's so hard to remember, but I think for me it was just like I'm gonna just make it work. I'm just gonna like just I don't know, just cover it up, make it work. I can do this. I can keep the secret.
Well, now did she didn't know this then, any of that?
I think no, not for the first several years. I did out of some kind of like desire to be somewhat honest. I think I had told her that there was some kind of like, I used to struggle with some whatever. I kind of like tried to kind of tell her that there was something going on. I kind of like alluded to some kind of
Right.
struggle but I kind of made it seem like it was all in the past and it was all going to be fine. So that was totally a lie that it was in the past. Yeah. So no, I mean, she didn't have any idea that it was, such an obvious and ongoing thing.
So for me, it's like I knew well, the church always call it same-sex attraction, right?
Yes, they do.
So I knew that I had that, but I honest to God didn't know I was gay
Mm,
when I didn't. But you're so everything's on top of you, and
yes.
you can't do that. Da 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 da. So I mean, I never experimented with anybody, and it was just all the attraction was there.
Yeah.
And it's really weird for me because for me, it was always a man's chest that I was attracted to.
Mm,
And
mm,
for me, I mean, not to, be psychiatrist myself, but I think the connection is what I wanted. And I think
mm.
that was symbolic for that. That's what I was
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah, I get that. And so for me, it was like, well, and I've shared this part of the story plenty of times too, but like we had a friend at our Christian college who I ended up sleeping with shortly after I got married. And,
This was a male,
yeah, a guy. And it was nothing like, it was just very transactional, very quick, not like an affair or anything. It was just quick.
right,
And it was a one time, but I felt so, so, so guilty about that. And it was only a couple months after we had gotten married. And I carried that guilt and shame. And I was such a like innocent Christian kid that I was first of all, I was convinced I was going to get AIDS from that one experience. And then second of all, I was convinced that he was going to somehow like rat me out to my wife, to the school, to whatever. Like even after we had left that college community and gone on, I had kids, I was like in ministry. I was just always like watching my back, like scared that like my pastor would call me in the office one day and he'd be like, Matt, I got a call from this guy, this mystery man saying, he
right,
was going to out me. I just was living kind of with that fear over my head.
right,
Not that he would have ever even done that, but I just had this fear that, one day your sin is going to find you out. And so eventually, with all that kind of fear hanging over my head and this, I don't know, I felt like I was living a double life, even though I wasn't having sex with guys. I wasn't cheating on my wife except for that one time. I eventually came out to her, and this was after 8 years of being married. And by this point, we had 4 children. We had 2 little boys and then twins who had just been born, a boy and a girl. I just couldn't live with this like double life or this feeling of being fake all the time.
right,
And so I came out to her. I told her about this guy. I told her I was gay, and I was terrified that she was gonna like just end our relationship and be done. But she said, no, let's work on this. And at the time I was convinced that I could be cured because this was 2002. There was a lot
right,
of national media about ex-gay people. There was a whole, Exodus International was big back then. Focus on the Family had a whole wing called Love One Out. There was all this stuff in the national
right,
media about this. And I was like, oh, if this is real, I want it. I really do. I was so fervent and
right.
sincere about it. So I told her, and then spent the next couple years, with her, with my church leadership on board, like trying to get healed. And so I dove into all that messed up reparative therapy stuff for several
So how
years.
how did that work out?
Wow, honey, let me tell you.
Really?
Yeah, no, not so well.
I think I went in and out doing that stuff for maybe 7 years.
Wow, okay.
Long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was
So
like my one observation was I was in two different groups with that, but the one, you'd have the guys come in, a younger guy. The guy leading it was probably in his 40s.
yeah.
But then you'd have the really cute younger guy come in, and he was always taking those guys out to lunch and coffee. And then you have like an average looking or below average guy come in, nothing.
Yeah.
And I finally put two and two together. It's like, huh, what's going on here? Yeah. So not very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I even did. You said you were part of the Vineyard for a while, and I did a movement. I mean, I did a group that was affiliated with Vineyard called Living Waters. I did that for a year.
Yeah, that's what I was in that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super intense, and boy, at the time I was so on board. I was so like I was a true believer, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the looking back, the only thing that was one of the good things for me was when I first went to that meeting, because you always feel you're so alone, right?
Oh, totally.
So
Yes.
so you to go and to hear the other stories, that's what got to me, that part.
Hmm.
And that was good. But the rest of it's like, come on.
Yeah, I appreciate that because there are, and I've talked with a lot of people who have been, who are whatever survivors, on the other side. And there is a weird, and a lot of people don't understand this. I don't feel like I was tortured or anything in those groups, and there's even a little bit of like nostalgia for it because at the time, it was the first place where I could really tell the truth about my
Right.
life. It was the first place where I was being honest about everything and finding
Right.
people who were like, we love you as you are. We accept you. We welcome you. Come on in. Now, was the theology all messed up? Was it really harmful? Ultimately, yes, 100%. And I name that for what it is, a harmful, toxic theology that like is, ultimately harmful. Yes. But at the time, it felt so like freeing and welcoming to be able to tell the truth about myself and be loved and accepted. So
Right.
it's a weird mixture of stuff.
So the twins are your youngest, right? And how old were they when you told your ex-wife that you were gay?
Well, I mean, that first time they were newborns, they were 6 months old.
Oh, so just right after that.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you stayed with her for how many years?
15 more years.
Would you do that again? If you could go back to that time, would you recommend that or
It's so complicated. I mean, I think in a word, no. And I do, I work with now I've worked with literally hundreds of men and officially formally paid clients, probably 50 to 70 different men. Every story is different. Every person has to kind of figure out his own life and figure out what he's going to do. So I don't tell people what they should or shouldn't do. But, Luann and I have even talked since this all happened. And as our lives have played out, it just would have been so much easier for both of us to start a new life at 30 years old instead of in our late 40s when
right,
we actually did get divorced. You know what I mean?
right,
There's just it's a whole different story. I eventually, after those 15 years of staying together, did decide to end my marriage, did decide to come out publicly and start a new life. And I was 44 at the time and she was 46. And that's a totally different story, when you're
right.
trying to start over at 44 and 46. When I came out to her the first time, I was 30 and she was 32. And I just think looking at our lives then, looking now, that would have we look back sometimes and go, wow, it would have been easier to do it then. On the other hand, our kids had like a family that was together for almost their
Right,
whole childhoods. We had
right,
wonderful family vacations. We had so much like really good stuff. And Luann and I actually had a really good and healthy marriage for the most part. We together would both say that even now. We had a lot of really good things despite the orientation mismatch at the heart of our
right.
marriage. There was a lot of good there too. So I don't know. It's really hard and there's no going back, of course. So
So you don't consider yourself bi then?
no, nope.
Because I get that a lot from my friends. If you're not bi, how could you get married? How could you have sex with a woman
Right.
all
Yeah.
those years?
Yeah. I get that too.
Well,
People want
part
to
of it is
know.
you're always young and you're horny, so that's part of
Yeah.
the answer.
It is. That's part of the answer. Part of the answer is fantasy that goes on up here to help it
Yeah,
happen. There's a lot of reasons,
yeah,
and a lot of it is just like I don't know. You kind of like make yourself do what you have to do.
yeah. I mean, I work very, very hard to be a really good husband and a father and blah, blah, blah.
I do
But,
too.
I remember this but we used to fight all the time. We
Mm.
we literally could not go out and have a meal without getting into a fight.
Mm.
It was like bad
Mm.
for many, many, many years. But I remember, and I really, really tried. But I remember this one day, looking back, of course, it's like, yeah, that's it. So I said, it was the middle of a fight, and I said, I don't know what you want or need, but I know that I don't have it inside me.
Mm.
And I didn't know I was gay at that point. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mhm.
But it's like, yeah, it,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
And of course, I couldn't adore her or be that for her because that wasn't in me. I
Right.
don't have that. I mean, I could do whatever I could, but
Yeah.
in the inside, I didn't have that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, totally. It's really hard, and it can be really demoralizing when you are trying and trying and trying to be what your partner needs and you can't. I've likened it to like trying to paint a wall with a bucket of water. Right? You can try and try and try and you
Right,
paint and paint and paint as fast as you can and as hard as you can,
right,
but eventually it just evaporates because you don't have
right.
the needed tools. You don't have that material you need to do the job, you know?
How are you with your kids today?
Oh, we're good. Yeah, I'm just honestly my story, as painful as it is, and there is a lot of pain there. There's a lot of just beauty and goodness. I'm very thankful for my relationship with my kids, and I owe a lot of that to their mom too. Because I think because of the 15 years that we stayed together and all of that work that went on during that time, we both evolved together over those 15 years. We
Right.
both kind of grew in our understanding of sexuality, understanding of like even our Christian faith changed pretty dramatically during that time, and our understanding of yeah, all of that. So even as our churches, because I was a worship pastor in churches those whole during that whole time, different churches, and so our churches would be like, it's not okay to be gay, but we at home would be like, hey kids, the church says this. In our family, we know it's okay. We would be like
Right.
actively teaching against what the church was teaching in our home. We would be watching
Wow.
Modern Family at home. We would be like, and like in Northern California, our kids would have gay and trans friends at their schools, and they'd be welcome in our homes. So even though the kids didn't know about me, we were actively creating a gay and trans friendly home so that when I did finally come out to the kids, it was like a safe and loving environment
So
to do
when did
so.
that happen?
So that was shortly before I came out publicly in 2016. And I came out to them before I came out publicly so that like in our little home, there was like this 6 months where we as a family knew that this was about to happen before the rest of the world did, which
Okay.
was really interesting and hard, but good. And like, the kids and me and Luann, we knew dad's gay, mom and dad are getting a divorce, but this is our family secret right now. And we're going to kind of keep it close to the vest.
Oh.
And then eventually it's going to come out more publicly.
So during that 15 years before you came out,
Yeah.
so you're in ministry at that point, right? So what was did anybody, no one else knew that you were gay though, and staying in the marriage, right?
Yeah, I would always need people to know. I'm such and that was some of the conflict in my marriage too, because I am such a extrovert and such a talker and such
Right.
a people person. Like I always needed people to know because I just felt so alone. So even before I thought it was okay to be gay, even before I had come to a place where I could accept it about myself, I always needed like people to know that this was my thing that I was fighting. So I
Right.
needed people on my side. And so I would always have at least some people in my churches who knew and who were like with us in this.
But
And
they
that was
looked at it
hard.
like you were struggling with this, right?
Yes,
That's
exactly.
what they were.
Exactly.
So people knew that you were gay, but your kids didn't at the same time.
Correct.
And you weren't
So we
worried
had to be
you weren't worried about cross-pollination there.
I mean, we just had to be careful who knew and how much and when. But that even that, like ultimately, like I sometimes talk about how the day after, like I came out publicly was one of the best days of my life because the relief of like not having to do that juggling anymore, of not have to go like, who knows and who does it and how much do they know and who might tell who and who,
Right.
I could just let it go. I could just say, doesn't matter. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Now I just get to live my life.
Right.
Well, everybody knows now, and it just was such a relief.
So when you came out, was it I'm gay and we're going to get a divorce at that point, right
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Okay, and that was 2016.
16. Yeah. And it was like, and it was, I'm gay, we're getting a divorce, and I'm resigning from my job at this church, and I'm resigning my credentials in my denomination. It was all four at the same time.
Whoa. Would they have taken that away from you anyway? So you just kind of beat him to the punch.
Yep. And I did it that way intentionally. Like I could have caused a showdown and made them take it from me, but I did that so that at least my hope was that I could continue to be in relationship with the people that I had been in relationship with for
Right.
16 years or 17 years so that I could hopefully be an example of someone who was gay and a Christian and, that they wouldn't just cut me off, that I could stay in relationship with them.
So how did the church people take it?
I would say that it was like a mixture.
Right.
I think because of the way, and again, this is much credit to my ex-wife too, and my kids, the way that we as a family tried to present this as a united front, and the way that I tried to like resign without making them fire me, like we tried so hard to like
Right.
do this quote unquote right, if there is a right way to do it.
Right.
I'm not trying to be a saint here or anything, but we did try to kind of like, I want to do this well so anyway, there were plenty who were kind of awful about it for sure. But there were a lot of people who kind of, I don't know, who kind of followed me and who said, okay, I'm listening. I'm trying to, and I appreciated that. I tried to,
Right.
yeah. So a lot of people, even to this day, almost 10 years later, are still connected with me on Facebook and stuff from my old churches and they'll comment on my posts and I've had
Wow.
so many people over the years who have direct messaged me and said, it's because of you that I came to understand gay people or I came to accept gay people or something because I was their pastor back in Tulsa, Oklahoma 20 years ago or something and they followed my journey.
So were you, I'm assuming in that 15 years, gradually the relationship, physical relationship with your wife probably was like going downhill a bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was a 15 years of evolution for sure, and just kind of gradually realizing that, like, I talk about like a 3-stage thing. Like, number one, I realized that I was never going to change. Like, I was never going to become straight. And that
Right.
was something we kind of together came to realize. Oh, I guess I'm certainly never going to become straight. Okay, I guess I'll just have to live with this the rest of my life.
Right.
And then the second thing that I realized was, in those kind of ex-gay circles, they tell you never call yourself gay. You're same-sex attracted. This is something that you struggle with, but it's not who you are. Well, that second step for me was to begin to actually use the word to describe myself because it was, I don't know, like I don't know for you, but for me, always thinking that this was a fight, a struggle, it's exhausting. And I
Right.
was like, oh, I'm always fighting this thing. And once I just said, you know what? That's crazy. I'm just gay. I'm just gay. And this is a normal thing. Like gay men are attracted to other men. Okay. you know, and once I
Right.
started calling myself gay, too, was a relief. It was like, oh, well, I can stop fighting all the time. But it was interesting when I told my wife that, hey, guess what? I'm going to start calling myself gay because that makes a whole lot more sense. She didn't like that too much. She's like, oh, I mean, it was okay to be married to a man who was fighting his same sex attraction.
Right.
That's one thing. But to be married to a gay man, and I would tell some of my Christian friends, like, I've been thinking, and I think I'm just gay. Like, that just makes a whole lot more sense. They didn't like that too much. That's a different story. But for me, that made a huge difference and it felt right to begin to use that language to describe myself. And then the third stage for me was when I finally kind of crossed that theological border where I was like, okay, not only is this never going to change, not only am I just gay and that's
Right.
okay, but three, I think God might be okay with me being gay too. I think that if I weren't married to her, I think I could actually be married to a man. I think I might actually be able to like be blessed in this gayness of myself. And that was huge. But that was the kind of the 15-year evolution that I went down. Because once you get to that point, then it's like, oh shit, now what? Here I am, a gay man who accepts and loves himself, who knows that it's okay to be gay, but I'm married to a woman and I'm in a Christian denomination that doesn't let me be gay. What now? That's a
So
problem.
when you said to her, "I'm gay," then to the point of where you got divorced, actually, how long ago? What kind of a time thing was that?
Probably 3 years, maybe.
Wow.
And those were the really tumultuous and difficult years because that's when and that's what I find in working with people when they come to like accept themselves and like realize that this is fine, it's good, in fact, that this is who I've always been supposed to be.
Right.
Then it's like, oh, now what? Yeah, it's hard at that point because
So
it's one
you're
thing when you're fighting it, but it's another
right.
when you accept it.
I think if they see you accepting yourself, then they have to look at themselves and maybe they have to accept themselves.
Mhm.
That's the problem. I remember when we were like the gay couple, and not the gay, the perfect couple in the church, not gay
Yeah,
couple, and like so I got it. So when if I went by Jim, my other name back then. Well, if Jim and Eileen get divorced, oh my God, there's no hope for us because
right.
here's this couple on the, and we used to have we were involved in everything in the church.
Yeah.
and each of us said ministry stuff. And I had the whole church over to our house, had a big house, picnic at our place in the yard, a couple times a year, and all this stuff going on. So I get it, but I didn't really have a good experience in that it was a medium sized church, but I don't know, 450 maybe people in it, but only one person out of all of them. And I mean, doing ministry stuff for 20 years where I'm holding people while they're crying and all this stuff, right? And then when I needed something, nobody was there. One guy said, he came up to me and he said, I don't understand, but I want you to know that I care.
Hmm.
That's one person said that to me.
Wow.
That's it out of everybody. So not pretty.
No, I'm sorry.
So you're married now.
Yep.
Where'd you meet?
Met him on Facebook, of all places, during a
What?
pandemic.
Come on.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, I was I had dated so many guys, and it was really fun at first. And yeah, I'm in the Bay Area, there's tons of guys here. So I thought, surely I'll find somebody. And oh man, I had two, I guess, two boyfriends who kind of short-lived. And I had, yeah, I don't know. I had at that point kind of decided to give up. I was done. I'm just going to focus on me. It's the
Really?
classic story,
Right.
I'm going to date myself. And then the pandemic happens, right? So I'm literally just kind of locked in my little studio apartment. I am just focusing on myself and my ministry and whatever. And that was fine. And it was February, I think, of 2020. And I get a friend request from this person, and his social media was terrible. Like, I'm pretty snobby about my social media. It wasn't even a real profile picture. It wasn't even his real name. And he's in Mexico. And so I'm like, I didn't even accept his friend request. I didn't even accept it. And so a couple months go by, and I finally am looking in my alternate inbox on Facebook. You know how there's like another one
The
for
hidden thing that you never know is
non-friends?
there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was a message from him, and he's like, "Hey Matt, I'm Alejandro. I am," at the time he was living in Guadalajara, and he says, "I'm in Guadalajara. I have a ministry for LGBT Christians on Zoom, and I would love to be connected for support and encouragement." And I was like, "Oh, I can do that. Absolutely." So I like accepted his friend request, and I started to invite him to Zoom things that I was doing
Now,
online.
did you know at that point it was the guy that you rejected the friend? Did you
I
put that
guess
together
so.
or
I think
not?
I put that together, but I
Okay.
still was just like, because I was not in dating mode at all. Wasn't thinking anything about it.
Right.
And so he starts coming to like church things and different groups that I was leading, and I thought he was nice. I don't know. But I
Wait, he was
wasn't
coming, what, on Zoom was
on
this or what?
Zoom.
All
Yeah,
on
on
all on
Zoom.
Zoom. Okay.
I mean, it's pandemic.
Right.
And then he invited me to be, well, what was, I don't remember the exact order of things, but we did start to notice each other. And he had mentioned in one of the groups that he used to be married to a woman like 20 years ago for just 2 years, very short, no kids. And I was like, oh, we should talk sometime. I have a similar experience. So
Right.
we set up a Zoom conversation, and we hopped on Zoom one time, just the two of us, and talked and shared our stories. And I was like, okay, well, that was great. Bye. And I hung up. And I was, again, not thinking dating at all. And he was like disappointed, I guess, at the end. Like, he thought this was more of like a date situation. And then he invited me to speak to his Thursday night group, and he would provide translation because it's all in Spanish and I don't speak Spanish. And the day that happened, he sends this giant, gorgeous bouquet of flowers, like rainbow flowers. And I was like so smitten. And I'm like, wait a minute. I started putting things together. Like, I think he's pursuing me. I
Wow.
actually, and I had always wanted someone to pursue me. I was always the puppy dog following, chasing after other people
Right.
and getting my heart broken. And so all of a sudden someone is pursuing me and treating me like really well. I was so, I don't know, moved by that. And so, and then he flew up here. Like, as soon as the border opened after COVID, he flew up here July of 2020, and we ended up spending 4 days together and had a wonderful time. And I had put together this list of 15 things I was looking for in a man. I had like, and I had kind of forgotten about it. This was like, I don't know, like a year prior or 2 years prior. And I started sneaking looks at my list, and he was like, I think he had 9 of the 15 that I could see, but I had to start asking him a couple, like, hey, so, and I was asking him questions, and sure enough, he hit all 15 of them, all 15.
Wow.
And so then we decided on the last day that he was here, I showed him the list. I said, I want to show you something. And I showed him the list, and how he was matching all 15. And I said, I think we should maybe consider making this happen, even though it's long distance. And the rest is history. We've been together 4.5 years. We got married in November of 22 and filed for his green card. And then literally just yesterday morning, he got his permanent resident visa in the mail, and we're making plans for him to move here at the end of April.
Is that a green card? Is that a green card,
Yeah,
or
it's a
is
green
it
card.
something
Well,
different?
it's a green card, but like the green card actually gets mailed here. He gets his visa there, then he flies in. He'll get his green card here in a couple months.
Well, with all the nutty political
I
stuff going on,
know.
I'm glad he got it.
Me too. We've been on, I mean, it's been a journey, let me tell you.
Wow.
Yeah. I was down in Mexico with him just last month for his interview, and it's scary. It's just like holding my breath,
Wow.
but he got it. He passed the interview.
Is he older than you, or your age, or what is, or
He's
younger, or what?
like, I'm 53, he's 49, so very similar.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so will he do ministry stuff in the States then when he's here, or what's he gonna do?
He's like a IT project manager. He's really smart. He's got 2 master's degrees, and one of them's a global MBA and one's in science with a AI emphasis. So I think he'll work like in tech and industry stuff, but he does like ministry as a side thing, and he's a spiritual director also. He went through the same program that I did a couple years after I did. So he will do that also. And he does this Thursday night group for Latin American gay Christians.
Have your kids met him?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Before we got married, he could come here, fairly frequently. He came here, I would go there. But then once he filed for the green card, he wasn't able to enter the US during this whole process. So he hasn't been here since November of 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you've gone there since then, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've been there 8 times since we got married.
Wow.
Yeah. He lives in Puerto Vallarta. He's got a beautiful condo right on the beach. It is very nice.
Is he
I mean,
keeping
it's
that?
small, but it's
Is he
nice.
gonna keep it?
Yeah, yeah, we'll keep it. And we can rent it out, and that can be some additional income.
Wow. So let's talk about what you're doing now.
Okay.
So what are you doing now?
Well, I have a month to kind of. It's funny. I moved here just about a year and a half ago, so my husband hasn't even seen the condo where I live. So I'm like, I gotta get this place ready. What am I doing now? I'm really passionate about this work. So I love my little church. It's really sweet. I'm grateful to be able to still be in ministry. It's a very different, very very different kind of approach to faith than I had before. Along with my evolution kind of in sexuality, my faith has gone through a pretty radical evolution as well. I no longer hold my Christian faith with such kind of a conservative, like tight grip. I don't know how to. My Christianity is just a wide open Christianity, if that makes sense. And is it? I tell people I'm a Christian agnostic, and I'm kind of like a mystic in the way that I experience my faith.
Right.
Is it true? Is it factually true? I don't have any idea. I mean, I live out my faith. I practice my faith, and I believe that I experience God on this Christian path. But I'm certain that there's plenty of other ways that people can experience the divine. And so I love to invite people into this Christian path if they want to experience God in this particular way. That's lovely. And so in my church and in my nonprofit, I do a lot of work with people who are kind of like deconstructing their more conservative Christian faith and
Right.
interested in kind of exploring different ways to experience God. And I am really passionate about that.
Is this like a home church size, the group, or are you in a church, or what is it?
No, the church that I pastor it's an American Baptist church. It's called The Quest. And yeah, I mean, it's small. We have 50 people maybe on a Sunday morning. But yeah, I've got a co-pastor and a little small staff, and it's a great little church. It used to be a First Baptist church. It used to be a Southern Baptist church, but it has evolved pretty dramatically since then.
So there must be like a million different Baptists, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because even hearing Baptist and what you're doing in the same
I
breath
know.
is like,
I know. I'll tell people I'm an American Baptist, and they're like, "What? You're a Baptist?" And I go, "Well, yeah, but I have a husband too, so if that tells you anything, you know."
wow. And
Yeah,
what is the nonprofit? Well, before you go on for that, so what percentage would you say in your church are LGBT?
pretty small actually. Let's see. I mean, out of the 50 people who were here this last Sunday, I might have been the only gay person.
Really?
Uh-huh. I think I was. But we have an LGBT support group that people from the community come to, and we're very known as very gay friendly,
Okay.
queer friendly. we had a transgender staff member who was our sound person for several years. She's not here anymore, but so we, we're known as a really queer friendly church.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then what's the nonprofit about?
So the nonprofit is it's called Common Sanctuary, and that's kind of where I do my kind of all my like one-on-one coaching, spiritual direction, support groups through, um, and contemplative spirituality groups. So Monday nights I do contemplative spirituality groups for queer people. Usually 25 or 30 people are there every Monday night, 6:30
Okay.
to 8 p.m. And then I do individual one-on-one spiritual direction with individual clients. I have about 30 that I work with every month. And then I do these support groups for gay men who are married to women. And actually, I'm starting up a group with another therapist that'll be for spouses. And that's the first one I'm doing. I'm really excited about that because I think there's a lot of need for that for straight spouses. Yeah. And then I have a
Wow.
YouTube channel that it doesn't have a ton of content, but I'm going to be starting to get more on that too
Cool.
through the nonprofit.
Well, reaching the end or near the end. So I always ask my guests, so what have you learned in your life? What do you live by? What's the
Uh,
main thing? Or
oh
one
my
of the
gosh.
things?
What have I learned? So much. I just feel like, what have I learned? It's so hard to distill it into. For me, I feel like the more I know, the less I know, if that makes sense.
Right?
Like
No,
I
I get
used to
it.
be so certain, man. When I was 18 years old, I was 100% convinced that I knew all the correct theology, all the correct politics,
Right.
all the correct everything. And I was like this staunch conservative, Rush Limbaugh listening, fundamentalist
Uh,
evangelical, right? And I was convinced. I was so deeply wrong. So my whole life up to this moment, it just is about expanding, expanding, expanding. It's about more and more and more
right.
and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'll say that in the last 10 years, like since coming out, since it's always about kind of more and kind of opening to more, realizing that there's always more to experience, always more to learn, always. And I've tried, especially since kind of, I'll say that like kind of a contemplative stance in the world has been so, so important to me. Learning to really listen, learning to really
Right.
be with people, learning to, yeah, that's been so, so important. Yeah. And even like spiritually, like love, man, love is the heart of everything,
Right.
everything. Just to trust that. And if God is, then God is love. Yeah.
Excellent. So in our episode notes, I don't know if I ask you this, but I need a little bio or something like that, and the best way for people to get a hold of you. And we'll put that down there, and they can look you up.
Okay, sure. Yeah, you can go to my website, mattnightingale.com or commonsanctuary.org. And you can follow me on all the social medias at Matt Nightingale.
Very good. You're a good guy. It was fun.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks again, and we will be definitely be in touch.
Great. Thank you,
Thanks.
Wilkinson.